All right, what is up, folks? Welcome back to another episode of Make Fitness Make Sense. Per the usual, I'm your host, Coach JK McLeod. We are back with another weekly episode. Today, we are going to be doing a Q&A or a CNA, like a comment. And no, I totally just jacked that up. I was going to say Q&A because it's question and answer, but quite honestly, there's a couple of things that weren't specifically questions. They were posts or comments, and I answered some of those. So comment and response, comment and answer. I don't know. All right, we're off to a great start. Let's go ahead and jump into what we've got on the list today. I've got 5 topics that I want to cover, 5 things that I want to share with you. The first one was a post from someone who had talked about changing their eating habits and still gaining 5 pounds. I want to provide some additional questions that I would have if someone were to bring this information to me, because this is not an uncommon phenomenon to happen, and there's often some explanation for it. So I'm going to give you some hopefully helpful questions that if you are finding yourself in that same situation where you've changed some eating habits and then still finding that you gained 5 pounds over a month, some things you can check in with. Let's see. Second, I'm going to give my thoughts and my perspective on a coach who posted about seeing folks in the gym doing a whole lot of ab exercises and some feedback that they had about that. Then next on the list, we are going to talk about what do you do if you get in the gym and then you're struggling on movements that you hit easily the week before. So we'll talk a bit about progression and what to expect, what not to expect, and why. Fourth on the list, we're going to talk about pre-workout. Do you need to take a pre-workout? And then last, but certainly definitely not the least, because I've definitely got thoughts on this, was responding to someone who said that they had been looking for a personal trainer, but that they notice when they look at that particular trainer's page, I'm assuming this is online, they only see people of a certain aesthetic. So they had some questions about that, and I want to provide my point of view on that. So before getting into any of those topics, I, as always, want to say thank you for choosing to press play on Make Fitness Make Sense. I know that there is no shortage of fitness content that you can probably do consume. So I truly promise you, truly never take it for granted that you chose to press play on today's episode. Also, we'll put in a very non-shameless plug that if you did not listen to last week's episode with special guest Coach Betsy Foster, I really, really want to encourage you to go back and listen to that particular episode where we really had just a very transparent conversation between two coaches around things that we continue to observe within the health and fitness space, both from coaching clients, and then also just really specifically getting into certain things that will hopefully help people continue to make progress or maybe provide some new information for you. So I want to really encourage you, if you have not already done so, go back and listen to that most recent episode from last week. All right, let's get into today's comments/questions. So the first person said, I've been reducing the amount of sodas I drink and starting to drink more water. I'm eating more chicken, less red meat, and more salads. I've been doing this for about a month. And guess what? In bold letters, I gained 5 pounds. And no, it isn't muscle weight. I give up. So in summary, what I'm taking away from this is that the individual has changed their eating habits and they are frustrated and ready to give up because the scale is now up 5 pounds. This is not uncommon at all, as I mentioned right from the jump. You make a decision that you're going to take better care of yourself. You want to lose some weight. You want to lose some body fat, whatever the case may be. So you make these changes and then only to have the scale increase by 5 pounds or whatever that number is, that becomes very frustrating. And you decide, I am done. This is what always happens. Before you decide to scrap the entire thing, I want to provide some perspective and some insight on some additional questions. If you were sitting in front of me right now whether this was in person or on a screen, here are some things that I would point out to you along with ask you some additional questions about. I would ask you some context here. So this is some context-based coaching. So first thing that I would point out is simply sharing that you have started eating more chicken and less red meat and eating more salads is really, really incomplete information, because there's very often this assumption that eating a air quotes eating a salad is just inherently healthier than what you were eating before. And I'm going to tell you, for most folks, yeah, it probably is, primarily because it contains more vegetables, probably lettuce and maybe carrots and different things that are mixed in there than what you potentially had been eating before. But there's this assumption that just because you're now eating something that is a salad as opposed to whatever it may have been before, that that's automatically going to equal less calories. And that's the first place that I would start, is trying to get a better understanding of, hey, what exactly is going into the salad? Because just saying I eat salads, again, very incomplete information, because salads still contain calories. And especially for those folks who really enjoy adding additional dressings or sauces to salads, those contain calories also. So that's the first place that I would start. Second thing that I would really get curious about, and let me back up for a quick moment here. Let me put things in reverse for a quick moment. For those who may not be familiar with me, my intention with going through comments and posts of this nature and then pointing out pieces where the information is, from my perspective, incomplete, is intended to be helpful and open up more conversation and help people take action if they are truly feeling like what they post and they're wanting to make improvements on those particular things. My intention, even though it may not be accepted this way or heard or received this way, my intention is not to point out, well, if you don't ask the perfect question, then you have no idea what you're doing and you're going to fail. That's definitely not my intention. My intention is, hey, if we're looking to truly improve this particular area versus posting just to post, then here are some additional questions to ask yourself or ask a coach if you've got access to one, so that you can improve the situation that you're seemingly not happy with. Okay, so again, first would get an understanding of what we're talking about when we say we're eating more salads, because that's something that they mentioned. More salads, more chicken, less red meat. Secondly, I would want to get an understanding of their movement, their daily movement. So there was no mention of that. And it does seem like, based on context clues, the focus is on losing weight, because there seems to be a frustration that the scale is up. I gained 5 pounds. So I'm assuming that the goal was to lose. Let's say they wanted themselves to lose 5 pounds. I would want to get an understanding of what their movement looks like. Whether we're talking lifting weights, we're talking cardio, we're talking walking, whatever we may be doing, we need to have an understanding of that in order to provide any sort of actual useful feedback. Otherwise, we could do a whole lot of yapping, but the yapping is not really going to get anything done. I also would want to get a better understanding of when someone says that they're drinking more water. Again, what would be helpful is to know, well, when you say you're drinking more water, how much water? So again, working with some better data. And then this last one comes up so often as what I believe is a really missing question of context in posts like these. Okay, I just went through a massive sneezing fit, so hopefully I cut that out properly. Okay, what I was saying before the sneeze attack hit is something that comes up here that is often very much missed in the context of this, when somebody is saying that they've been really hitting it hard for a month and their weight is up 5 pounds. I want to see all the weigh-ins, every single weigh-in. And I will tell you more often than not, I'd say if somebody says something like, over the last 2 weeks, I've put on 5 pounds, for example, I will see no more than like 4 weigh ins. More often than not, I'm seeing like two. So we have the starting weight, and then a week or two later, I weighed myself again. And then if there's a difference of 5 pounds, then I'm saying I've gained 5 pounds. And I will tell you that is a quick way to drive yourself absolutely insane if you are going to let the scale be the primary driver. And I quite honestly don't even recommend that being the primary driver. I think that folks are in a generally going to be in a better position when they combine how much they weigh, what their body measurements are, photos, and how things fit. I think if someone has fat loss, weight loss, aesthetic goals, those particular pieces, I think all together will be way more helpful than, pardon the pun, way more helpful than simply just focusing on how much you weigh. And especially if you weigh yourself on Sunday and then you weigh yourself one more time again the next following Sunday, that that just straight up is typically a sign of a lack of understanding, or really a lack of acceptance of how normal it is to have daily fluctuations in the scale. So somebody can weigh 175 on Sunday the 1st, and then the next Sunday, that would be the 8th, they weigh again, and then they're 178, and they'll just say, well, this isn't working because I gained 3 pounds. But if you have somebody who weighs just about every day and logs that data, and then you go back and you look at the averages, more often than not, even with two weigh-ins that might be 3 pounds apart, you'll find a whole lot in between where there are a lot of cycles and fluctuations, especially in women who still have a cycle. That can change quite a bit. And that would be my recommendation, unless disclaimer, unless you are someone who really struggles mentally when they are seeing how much they weigh and things like that. I would recommend getting a professional involved in that particular case. Outside of that, if you are going to have the scale be part of your overall journey, then I would recommend that you're weighing regularly. I would say right around 3 times per week, on average, I think is a good spot to be in. Again, disclaimer: if you've got any sort of issues, whether they be like diagnosed or otherwise, then don't listen to me on that. But this whole like I weigh one day, and then I wait 7 days, and then I weigh another day, and I'm going to let that be the end all be all, is a quick road to confirming that there's not really an acceptance. I'm not even going to say understanding, an acceptance of how normal it is for scale fluctuations to happen. All right, next on the list, there was a post I read, and it was from a coach/trainer. He said, when I see people with extra body fat doing a F ton of ab exercises at the gym, I wish I could explain to them that they would get a six pack a heck of a lot sooner if they focused on their nutrition and compound exercises like squats, deadlifts, dips, and pull ups. So I brought this one out, and I'm probably not going to spend more than maybe 3 minutes on this particular one. I brought this comment out, or this post out, to provide it as an example. And I'm more than willing to go back and forth with this particular individual, because I did comment that I had posted my comment as a response asking, what's stopping you from explaining that to them then? Because he started off the post with, I wish that I could explain to those people that they get a six pack a heck of a lot sooner, blah, 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 when I see them doing all these exercises. What's stopping you then? And this is why I want to call this out, because this is a post for engagement farming. Like, that's what it is. And I decided to participate in said engagement. So my commenting on that, even though it's been, I don't remember what day it was, but it's been a few days at this point that post was up. And as usual, when I comment on things like that, very often my comment will go unresponded to, while other comments are being responded to. And it's not it's not a case of where my comment was 5 hours ago and then all the other ones were way before that. No, there's people who are continuing to comment on that. I think until like yesterday that I saw, and still, mine goes unsaid because I'm aware that it's just a post for engagement. The reason that I do comment on things like that is because it's not for the person who posted it. It's more for it's advocating in my own way, and unsolicited advocating for the people that I talk to, who then will read a post like that and it starts to have them question what they're doing in the gym, whether or not they should be quote unquote wasting their time doing an F ton of ab exercises and things like that. I don't know. Like if I'm that individual, then I'm thinking to myself, well, this is a coach who it seems like has a pretty decent sized following. I didn't really look at the whole thing, but let me just assume that this is probably somebody who has a larger following than me, and probably has a pretty sizable roster. I mean, I keep a roster of 10 or less one-on-one clients. I don't have a large roster on right now. And also comments like that I wish I could explain that to them. If you really wanted to help somebody, you would go help somebody. So no, that's not necessarily what you want to do. This is just straight up judgment. It's just judging people. And as a coach and trainer, when you're inside the gym, I think that it's just absolutely human nature to observe. I compare it to when I work in the retail environment. I have people that come in all the time who are in the construction field. And for some context, the business that I'm in is not construction. It's a retail sales environment, like what we call hard lines. And it's not a home improvement store. But what happens is when I have folks that come in who have some sort of a construction background, it's very natural that when they walk in, they're observing and they're looking up at the roof and kind of seeing how certain things are built because it's a large, big box building. So periodically from time to time, a customer will ask some sort of question about like, oh, hey, I just noticed the way that beam is put together, like things that I would never have paid attention to. Very similar to like if you are somebody who's a home builder or you're somebody who's in the real estate business, you flip houses or whatever the case may be. When you have an interest in that, when you walk into homes, you observe things from a different point of view. You observe. There's a difference though between observation and judgment. So observing would be, oh, I'm kind of noticing, that woodwork, or I'm noticing if you're somebody who's really into art, you walk in and you notice, oh, the way that picture is framed, different things like that. That's one thing. You deciding like, oh, well, these people must be super poor because they used, this sort of ceiling, and that ceiling must not, I know that ceiling doesn't cost much. So these people must be really poor. I'm just making something up. That's the equivalent of how I perceive when coaches and trainers will post negative things about things that they're observing inside the gym. And I just want to let you know, I'm certainly not going to say that doesn't represent the majority, because I don't know the majority of coaches and trainers. I will just let you know that does not represent the majority of the ones that I know and that I interact with. I'm not going to say that there aren't people out there, because Lord knows that's not true. To the person who is allowing seeing comments like that to form their perspective and their view of what personal trainers and coaches are thinking about them, I just want to let you know that that's not always going to be the case. And people like that, like coaches and trainers like that, typically don't do very well in life in general. Like it's just not a great, I'm not even gonna say not a great business model. It's just not a great character model. So I'm just gonna leave it at that. Yeah, we'll just leave it at that. I said that was only gonna be 3 minutes, but and if you are, your general person that's going to the gym, doing what you can, and you want to keep doing ab exercises, keep doing the ab exercises. Like bump that dude. All right. Next one. The question is, what do you do if you get in the gym and you start struggling on things that you hit easily the week before? Really, really like this particular one, especially because over the last couple of years, at least, I believe that there has been a massive improvement in the general understanding of how helpful and impactful it is to shoot for progression, being able to lift more reps week over week or through a 6 to 10 week program, being able to lift heavier weights than you did week over week or every 2 weeks or whatever the case may be over a 6 to 10 week program. Often this is termed under the umbrella of progressive overload. So again, over the last couple of years, I believe based on observations and conversations that there's a much better understanding than there was before. I believe there's still a ways to go. And also I'm finding that the interactions that I'm having, there are more and more people who at least have heard about progressive overload and know that it's something that can be helpful. So I love a question or an observation like this. So what do you do if you get in the gym and you're starting to struggle on things that you hit easily the week before? Now, I for sure have experienced this. I have clients who have experienced this. I have plenty of people who've gone through my group programs who have experienced this. I even just posted about this on my Instagram last week where I basically went on a rant. Just my workout was absolute trash. And it was just a bad workout. There are a couple of things that I do. The first is I check in with myself to see like, okay, what is going on? Is this a headspace thing or is this a physical thing? So when I say a headspace thing, is this just like I got a lot on my brain right now. I got a lot on my mind. I just have a lot of things going on and my head is just not in the game right now. It's that overall, like everything just feels heavy. First, I check my mentals and kind of figure out, okay, what's going on here? Is this a scenario where I can regroup and I can re-engage and I can really do the best that I can to focus right now? Then I check in with my body, check in physically. Like what's going on here? Am I possibly underfueled? You know, and beyond being underfueled with not necessarily having enough calories to work with. Also, am I not just am I underfueled, but also am I possibly fueled not fueled well enough with the right things? So when I say the right things, it's like I can smash like a large blizzard from Dairy Queen the night before a 5 a.m. workout, and I have enough calories to work with for sure if I smash that, 8 hours earlier. However, how that's going to feel in my stomach from a digestion standpoint typically doesn't play too well. So the underfueled thing, sometimes, I don't want to overcomplicate things. However, sometimes it's helpful to go a little bit of a layer deeper with like the whole underfueled thing isn't always just about how many calories, it's also the quality of said calories. So if I've ingested things that are maybe a bit more difficult to digest and really settle, then I may be suffering some of the effects from that. So check on myself mentally, check on myself. So I'm recommending this to you too. Check on yourself physically. And then also within that, ask yourself, like, is my expectation to improve week over week a realistic one? And what does that improvement look like? I hesitate a bit just because I don't really want people to overthink this whole thing. So just try to narrow it down to is this a mental thing or is this a physical thing? And I understand both are part of the body, but I think you get an idea of what I'm saying. Generally, my encouragement for folks is going to be do what you can to put as much energy as you can to your compound, your big lifts. Like if you've got a squat day or an overhead press or whatever it might be, your big movements, do what you can, quite honestly, to like lock in, suck it up and get like go ham on the big stuff. And then your accessory pieces, perhaps you leave a little bit more in the tank. As long as you feel like you can safely do that. Now, some days you just don't have it. Like you just don't have it at all. You would actually be in a worse place. That's where you've got to be an adult and you've got to make that call. But I think the expectation that you need to feel like you're at least at 85 to 90% in order to execute your workouts. I think that is a fast track to hardly ever being consistent with your training. So just keep that in mind. Okay, last two topics that we've got here. This one's a quickie. A person said, "Do I need a pre workout if I'm naturally pretty hyper in the mornings and don't really need to get that wake up feeling?" Short answer, no, you don't. You don't need to take a pre workout. If you're already pretty hyper in the morning and you don't really need to like get jazzed and get wake up to feel woken up, you may be one of God's chosen few. But in in all seriousness, though, no, there's not a specific need to take a pre-workout. Sometimes I'll get a question like this, and when I ask someone to help me understand what the context is with that, because that's kind of my vibe, what they'll explain is, well, I'm just wondering if things could possibly be better. Like maybe it's not that I need to, that I have a problem. It's I just want to make sure that I'm doing what I can. I'm not really leaving any gains on the table or things like that. And then in cases like that, I'll I'm very much like the, I don't know, let's mess around and find out. Like let's try it and see. Now, if you are going to start with taking some sort of a pre-workout, I would recommend something that has is primarily just some caffeine versus caffeine and then a pretty heavy amount of beta alanine. Beta alanine is the ingredient that typically has you start to feel a little bit on the itchy side. Those folks who know like the old formulation of, I think it was Jacked 3D or sometimes C4, like that stuff. When that first became popular, I think it was maybe about 5 years ago or longer. People were like, "What is this itchy feeling? I feel like I have spiders all over me." That's beta alanine taken in the higher doses. I am someone who does utilize a pre workout, sometimes in varying levels of caffeine, and then try to keep my caffeine intake pretty minimal, really after about 12, maybe 1 o'clock in the afternoon for the most part. So different people are different. But again, I would say if you're already pretty dope, or pretty doped up, pretty jazzed up, not doped up, jazzed up in the morning, pretty hyper, as the person said, then no, I don't really see a need for you to get that. However, if you are somebody who has like massive like supplement FOMO, like I'm just not, I feel like I might be missing out or whatnot, I would say to go, if you're going to do that, to specifically with pre workout, I would say just start with maybe just a little bit of caffeine and just see if that does anything for you versus going like all the way with some of the stuff that's like, 400 milligrams of caffeine and then a ton of beta alanine. Okay, last one. I wanted to address this. The person said, "I've been looking for a personal trainer. I noticed that when I look at their pages, I only see people of a certain aesthetic. I wonder, is that someone they helped get there or just someone helping with content? I want to see the evidence." All right, I'm bringing this one up because this is something that is a heavy topic of conversation within a couple of different business coaching groups that I'm in. And in one of the business coaching groups that I'm in, it's often talked about being in what we call a trust recession, where people are just really like they are tapped out and burned out on every coach under the sun that's offered like to get them results, and not even like quick results, but folks who feel like they've invested a pretty heavy amount of money and haven't gotten even close to the results that have been promised. So you have things like that. And I'm not even specifically talking just fitness. In another business coaching group that I'm in, one of the things that's talked about quite a bit is having social proof. And that's really what this person is talking about. They're, when they say when they go to look at somebody's page, they see people of a certain aesthetic. So they wonder, is that someone who is actually a client, or they say, or someone helping with content? Very keen eye that this person has. That is something that is definitely out there, where you will have coaches and companies, like coaching companies or fitness companies, who will reach out to people on their social media page. So they'll DM somebody who's gone through their own weight loss journey or fat loss journey or gotten shredded, did a show, whatever the case may be. And they'll ask them if they can purchase their photos and use them for their own marketing campaigns. This is not like a unheard of, like, oh, this is, I can't believe this happened sort of thing. This is a very regular, like super duper regular thing in the fitness industry, uh, where somebody will have a transformation on their own or working with another coach or somebody who's yeah, that just they've had their own transformation, and a coach and or company who's had nothing to do with their results will reach out to them and ask if they can utilize their photos on their page. I remember some years ago, you could actually go on Fiverr and you could buy before and after photos. That was a totally normal thing that you can do. You probably can still do it. You can actually buy before and after photos and use them for your own programs. So the person saying that they want to see the evidence of what a personal trainer is able to do, and it seems like they're looking for somebody online. So here are things that I would recommend, and I say this again from the perspective of somebody who works online but is not currently, as of right now, like August 2026, having an open roster spot. So I'm going to speak very freely on this. One, if you're looking to see that evidence, you have to look for more long form content. Perusing through somebody's Instagram is it's just going to take you longer to get a real idea of what they've got going on, because there's just I've said it 3 times and I'm going to say it 300 more as long as there's breath in my body. Social media is not built for context. So even a quote unquote longer reel, which is like over a minute long, that's still not going to give you a whole lot of context. So try to find longer form content, something like podcasts like this one. So if that person has podcasts, either that they host themselves or that they've been guests on, and you can find episodes where they're having conversations about different topics within the fitness industry. Maybe they've had a client on, whatever it might be. Try to find long form podcasts, YouTube videos. So if they also are doing vlogs, things like that, try to find long form content. Another suggestion that I have is to see if they have access to any sort of workshops or multi-week challenge groups that they put together, or some sort of group program that will give you some sort of actual insight into their process. There are plenty of trainers who, even though they primarily do one-on-one, periodically they'll do group programs or group challenges, or, like a 6-week this or an 8-week that. I would strongly recommend that if you're unsure about working with somebody in a one-on-one capacity like that, see if you can get access to being able to do some sort of a challenge, because that will typically give you some, like at least a decently realistic understanding of the person and their vibe and what they're all about. So trying to get access to anything like that, especially when they have workshops. Even I know myself, I'm actually going to be I'm hosting a workshop actually later tonight. That's closed now, but hosting a workshop later tonight, and then we'll likely, if things go well the way that I think that they will go, I will be opening some things up like that in the future. So, by the way, if you do want to stay in the know about when I decide to do another workshop, then you need to be on my email list. So that the link to sign up for that will be in the show notes if you want to stay in the know on that. Okay, and then the last recommendation that I would have for you, if you really want to get the evidence, reach out to that trainer and ask to speak to 2 of their current clients. Just ask them if they can connect you with 2 clients. They choose them. Just say like, hey, do you have a couple of your clients who I can connect with via, Instagram or email or something like that? Then I would recommend seeing if that's something that's possible. I think those things are all acceptable and realistic asks to have if you're really looking to invest in someone and you really want the evidence. Because just saying like, well, I want to see pictures of people that look more like me, whatever that means, isn't necessarily going to be the evidence. All that's going to do, in my opinion, is just further the whole, like, you're just altering what your filter looks like and making it more about what other people look like versus yourself. So I would recommend just reaching out to that trainer directly, seeing if you can connect with any of their current clients, at least one, if not 2, seeing what sort of long form things you can get a hold of, whether it be YouTube videos, vlogs, preferably podcasts too, again, because those conversations, a lot of times that'll tell you a lot about somebody's individual vibe. And then last but certainly not least, if they have, again, workshops, group calls, anything like that that they invite people into, I would definitely check that out. Okay, that is all of the topics for today. If you have stuck around this long, I sincerely appreciate it. If you would like to connect with me and you've got questions that you'd like me to answer in a future Q&A, or what did I call it? A comment and response, CNR. Maybe we can start something new there. Reach out to me. You can hit me up on Instagram at Coach JK McLeod. That's MCLEOD. Or you can email me, jk@jkmcleod.com. And then also, as I mentioned in the show notes, will be a link to sign up for my weekly email. You get a new workout free into your inbox, no strings attached, every Friday. And then periodically throughout the week, I'll have maybe one other email that I'll send to help with building and maintaining the foundational fitness habits of eat well, sleep enough, and exercise regularly. So with that, we're going to call this an episode. Thank you again so much for listening to the Make Fitness Make Sense podcast. I truly, truly appreciate you. Take care of yourselves, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye now.